everyone, welcome back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing splendidly. If you are new around here though, first of all, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. It helps the channel out. We've smashed 2,000, so thank you to everyone who joined. Welcome to the new guys and girls. Really do appreciate it. You can go a step further and become a member of the channel. The legends in the description did. You do that just by clicking the link in the description or clicking the join button if you're not on iOS. And if you are a returning Pommy and Oz, good day to you. Hope we're all doing really well. So what we're doing today is obviously the preview. We're finally back, aren't we? AFL footy is among us. And we've got Richmond, the Tigers, a team that has had the wood on us for the best part of a decade. And it's a real big one, this one. I can't explain going into this game how I think it is such a huge game. And I'll tell you for why. I think when you look at stages of development, one of the hardest things to do is your first time. And you're always looking at milestones. So when you learn a new skill, we're always looking at milestones. And it's something that I think humans don't do very well. And it's something that we often forget, that the journey is just as important as the end product. And we become focused. So at the moment, our focus probably is finals. I'd say that's the end goal. And then there's a bigger end goal of winning the thing. I think that all starts, if we break it back to the microid, is half-time. Carlton have only led half-time twice in the last decade in a round one fixture. Carlton have only led at quarter-time 4 times in the last 12 years in first rounds. They are 2 little mini milestones the boys have got to go through. They always start 0 and 1. It's a real interesting little factoid about Carlton at the moment is that there's not many players here on the list who have even won round one fixtures for their respective clubs. In fact, we've only got 11 players on our list who have won round one fixtures. Adam Shearer with 2, Oscar Mcdonald with 2, Ed Kerno with 2, incidentally going way back, Jack Martin, George Hewitt, Jack Noons with 3, Nick Newman, Zach Williams, Lucky Fogarty, Mitch McGovern with 1, and Adam Sard also has 3. So not many winners there. And that is how huge it is. And I think that if they get the round one win, which I really do think they will, I think that is huge just from a psychological standpoint for these boys. Because it's something they've never done. It kind of will then validate all their learnings, all the turmoil, all the new things they've experienced in the last 12 weeks plus. And it's a different mindset, isn't it? A different landscape. I was watching a thing with Claudio Ranieri with Leicester. And it was really interesting when they won the Premier League, which was a real shock. No one expected them to do it. And he kind of broke it down into like 12-week blocks, where 12 weeks it was fun. They were winning. The next 12 weeks, there was kind of a belief starting to come in. And then the final weeks of the season, there was a belief that they were indestructible. It started to grow almost out of control in the terms of that they just really believed they could do it. So I think that is a really interesting thing of 1-0 can turn into 2-0, can turn into 4-0, can turn into really anything. But the highest likelihood is over 80% of teams play finals from 1-0. That's a huge milestone because effectively they've broken a mental duck. And it's stacked against the boys. With the provisional teams, we haven't got the teams yet. You've got an average winning percentage of 60%. With Richmond, with Josh Gibbscus being the only one with a low percentage because he hasn't played. Carlton's average is 36. And a lot of them are warped because we've got a couple of players there in that 22 who've only played a handful of games but have won when they've played. This is a real mixed match of experience and it's a big dog. It's a big dog. And there's hope for Carlton. I really do believe there's hope. And I always subscribe to the philosophy in my role in development is if I don't believe in the person, they ain't going to achieve it. That is my key mantra in life. If I don't believe, how can they believe? So there's a bit of belief. Now, one thing that we've got to be wary of is Richmond. And one thing that Richmond have shown, again, in their pre-season is their ability to score from turnover. It is their bread and butter. 60 points coming this weekend, almost Hawthorn's score just in their ability to turnover. And a good large 70% of them are forward 50 entries for Hawthorn that were turned over. And what they do, and it's going to be really key this one, is Mr. Short. You'll see what they do is they're really clever ahead of the ball. When the ball gets loose, Short sets off. Short sets off. He's looking for space. And quite invariably, you see players like Vlostin and Short making runs, one through the corridor, one down the flank, allowing them to have that exit ball. And once that comes, it's gone. And you'll see that that's one of their archetypes. Their ability to handball backwards inside 50, bringing the press on, which then creates space in behind. It's going to be a really important job for maybe someone like Durden, someone like Owens, who are going to live on Short. You've got to track that run. Now, what Carlton did really well against Melbourne was that pressure was intent. There was quite a few turnovers Melbourne did because Carlton set up in nice lines of 3. You had the forward fifth, you had the full forward line, the half forward line, and then the midfield really chopped up towards just outside the 50 when that exit ball came, forcing it long. What you've got to do with Richmond is force them to the wings. This is going to be a war of attrition because Carlton have started to bring a very similar forward 50 method to Richmond. What is really important about Richmond is they keep the ball live. That is their strength inside forward 50. And you'll notice it, there's a lot of paddles. They don't look for stoppages. They look to keep the ball live. They expect the pressure to build. And invariably what happens, and you saw it against Hawthorn, the pressure gets so much, they either kick it out on the full or they do that relief kick to the wing, which then turns over possession and it starts again. You get a repeat inside 50. And that's what Richmond are really strong at. And that is what Carlton did show against Melbourne. This new style with Voss is really key. It's interesting as well because the pressure around the ground for Richmond isn't as crash hot as people think. Ranked 12th last year. We did see an increase against Hawthorn, but obviously Hawthorn aren't very good. It's the pressure in the forward where they rank in the top 4. That is where the danger is. That is where it is. What they do is they lock you in. And that is where we're going to be looking for. I think the addition of Doc is really interesting because the teams that have success against Richmond, and you saw it in the 4th quarter, Hawthorn really did start to show that when you start playing it out and you take the risk, that is how you beat the press. They commit a lot of numbers forward, a lot of numbers. So there is areas out the back, and that's why you're looking at Doc to ping some passes, looking for the switch, trying to get that switch over to Plowman or whoever plays in that lockdown role, because Carlton will need a lockdown in this fixture with players like Castagna, and then looking for that handball to let Sard run through or get Zach Williams on the ball and looking him to make that corridor kick, because the quickest way to beat their press is through the corridor. And incidentally, Carlton targeted that the majority of the game in St Kilda and Richmond and against Melbourne. It's interesting as well because one thing that has been an improvement in Richmond is their clearances. Now, genuinely, they ranked last, bottom 2 for clearances in the games. They had a real big clearance count last week against Hawthorn. And what you're starting to see is that's where Carlton's strength, we dominated it. It was one of the few times Carlton have done it in the season, and they really did dominate it. They actually generated scores as well, 46 points from that. Interesting enough, in the 4th quarter, Hawthorn started to do the same against Richmond. Interesting enough as well, scoreboard chains from midfield were at an all-time high, which is Carlton's strength. Carlton scored 63 points from midfield chains against Melbourne, and that is a really interesting part of what Carlton are bringing now. It's a real aggressive setup around midfield. I implore you to check out on Blue Abroad. There is the scouting inside report where we go into that in detail, but that is a real significant change for Carlton in how they set up around the ball. You're starting to see that one of them will block, someone goes to the ball, and then invariably it was Chera would hang out the back waiting for that handball, or Cripps drops down behind the ball waiting for the handball behind, and then Chera goes forward, and then he kind of had 4 handballs in a row, which then they were out, and ultimately they got inside 50s. And that is key, because what Richmond do around stoppages is they're very interesting. They either look for the ability to handball through traffic, or they reset, particularly in the centre, and that's why they have such a low centre clearance, because what they look for is they look for quality over quantity. So they're happy to reset because it gets them to put structure around the ball. With the 6-6 rule, they can't do that at centre bounces. But when a stoppage comes, when they get a stoppage in that centre or in the middle of the ground, they can flood where they like to do. And what they invariably do is they flood around the ball. They create them contests, which then create little outlets and pockets of space for them. It's a really interesting game, this, and it's a game that I think Carlton shouldn't fear. And I'll tell you for why. Because the tackle count for one in the midfield was phenomenal against Melbourne. It is one of the few times, and it's a scary thing, Carlton ranks 17th in tackles. They've only won the tackle count in games less than a handful of times. Do you know what I mean? Less than a handful of times. Average over the last 5 years is Carlton lose the tackle count by 8. They dominated it against Melbourne, and that is where you've got to come. You've got to stop allowing Richmond space. Richmond feed on turnover and space. And that was why Carlton, particularly in the last 5 years, with that panic ball, giving the ball back, it's suicide against Richmond. And I enjoyed the third quarter. And if anyone's got time before Thursday, go back and watch Carlton's third quarter. They were under the cosh, but their ability to control the football was evident. Their willingness to go short and running numbers and not give away possession will be integral to Carlton. Attack-wise, Carlton have the ability to outgun Richmond by a long way. The big issue, and what the issue is over the years, is Carlton's ability when Richmond do have the rub of the green, which they will do. In AFL, genuinely, you get about 5 minutes every 20, even if you're shit, of ball and of momentum. That is where Carlton need to do it. And it's interesting because when you look at sides we've lost to over the last 3 years, particularly in the dark days of Teague's reign, it was then 5 minutes that turned into 7, 8, 9 minutes because our application died. All in all, I'm feeling really confident in this one. I don't know why. I don't know if it's misplaced. I don't know what it is. But I just feel that it has to change. But also, I've seen enough to see that this system and structure can withstand such a good structure. Richmond's is an archaic structure now in today's game. It's a game that has served them well, but slowly, like all great dynasties, a system comes in and you can see they're starting to adapt it. We're seeing more marks from Richmond. They are using the ball longer and further, which plays in. And also, the two targeted forwards in the comp, 4th and 8th, most targeted players in the comp, are Riewoldt and Lynch. And we saw that really escalate this week against Hawthorn in their pre-season fixtures particularly, that they're really looking to get the ball in early. And that plays into Mitch McGovern's role. His new role was that interceptor. That is going to be a key role because he was someone that, after his first couple of blips in the first quarter, really set up score launches and looked to take the game on. And he is a guy that I am looking for here. I think Sard, Doc and McGovern between them will have a real telling factor because that is where we can hurt them when they're at their pomp. And they'll have moments of being on their pomp, and that is really it. All in all, I am confident in this game. I really am. What the score is, I don't know. My gut is telling me that it's going to be a 4+ score win to Carlton. And that could be crazy. And I might regret saying that. But honestly, that's what's my gut saying. And that's what's just looking at the raw data. Obviously, the difference between raw data and real life is these players have to repeat it. But at the moment, the key indicators from 2 preseason games are very strong. And I can tell you from following this game at the level that I do with you guys and girls, I've never seen Carlton have strong numbers and key indicators that tell me something has changed and something is the positive. This is application. This is structural. And this structure should beat them. Can they do it? I believe they can. Do you think they can? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait to welcome you on Thursday to the watch along. If you are going, cheer hard, sing hard. We will do on the live. What we'll do as well, we'll finish with some tips. I'm going to go, these are my tips for the week. I'm going to go Melbourne. I'm going to go Carlton. I'm going to go St Kilda. I'm going to go Geelong. I'm going to go Sydney. I'm going to go Brisbane. I'm going to go Hawthorn. I'm going to go Fremantle. And I'm going to go Gold Coast to wrap it off. So we'll see how that goes. We will get a dedicated tip video in. Much love. God bless. And until next time, Pom out.